Today we're going to be reviewing one of the more overlooked E.G.Os, I would say, in Limbus Company, and that E.G.O is Ishmael's Roseate Desire. Roseate Desire is a 10th level E.G.O, has 29 base and negative 13 roll, does piercing damage, has attack rate of 1. Already we got a little bit of a bumpy road because it's a 10th level E.G.O with a negative roll. That would be good if it was on the Corrosion, but it's not, it's on the Awakening, so that's already a little bit of negative points for it. Okay, but let's see what the on-hit effects are saying. On-hit, inflict 10 offense level down. On-hit, inflict 3 paralysis. And on-hit, inflict 3 bind next turn. Alright, the paralysis and offense level down would be really nice on a next turn, but if you're fast enough, you can make good use of it, and if you make use of it, it's going to have a pretty decent value, I suppose. But what I think is the main gimmick of this E.G.O is its passive. Pink Ribbons. On Clash Win, inflict 1 pink ribbons. Now you might be wondering, what are pink ribbons? Well, pink ribbons is a status effect only inflicted by this E.G.O, nothing else, and what it does is every time the enemy who is afflicted by pink ribbons flips a dice, they will gain 1 pink ribbon count. Now, at the end of the turn, all pink ribbon counts gets turned to bind potency, so this could be a very, very nasty inflictor of bind if you have a fast Ishmael. If you use this E.G.O, it'll cost you 20 sanity, which, I mean, is the base for all TEFs, but you would really hope that it could give you a little more sanity taken off, just so you can roll the tails a little more often, but it's fine, I suppose. And it'll cost you 1 Wrath resource and 4 Lust resources, which is, all in all, a pretty fair price. Followed by your resistances, which are Fatal to Wrath, Ineffective to Lust, Fatal to Pride. Now, if you crowd this E.G.O, your roll will change to a 19 base with a plus 9 roll, 1 attack weight still, and still do piercing damage. Well, this is actually not what you want, because why would you want a Corrosion to have a positive coin, but the Awakening have a negative coin? That makes no sense, at least to me. On hit, inflict 10 offense level down, same as before. On hit, inflict 5 paralysis, and on hit, inflict 5 bind next turn. So, all in all, I would not recommend you crow this E.G.O at all. It's just better to have it on Awakening. It's just all in all better. Maybe 2 paralysis, 2 more bind next turn. That's not nearly worth it. You know the time, folks, and so do I. It's time to rate the E.G.Os. Starting off with the drip. The drip is pretty good. Alright, well, there's 2 ways you can look at it. You can look at it pretty good, because that's the way I look at it, or you can look at it as trash because it's just base Ishmael with a little bit of ribbons. But I think it looks pretty nice. The pink ribbons are contrasting the dark colors of the sinner's clothing, which is nice. And I like the weapon too, and that's about all you can really say about the Awakening. Moving on to the Corrosion, I mean, she becomes a little bit more taken over by the ribbons. The Corrosion isn't all too crazy compared to the Awakening, but still, I like the pink. It's a really nice contrast to the dark color of the sinners. Like I said, but even more so in the Corrosion's case. Now, for the strength check, it doesn't look all that crazy to begin with. But, if you start looking closer, the 29 base, which means you could roll it, you could get a negative 13, but you could roll the 29. If you do, that is very, very high rolling for a TEF. I think the maximum a TEF can roll is 30 with Rhyme Shank. But this is still very good, and if you use it right, which means if you use it at Canto 5, where Ishmael starts off with negative 25 sanity, you could use this to a pretty good extent. So I think I'm going to put it at a 4.5. No, I think I'll put it at 5. Middle of the road, because it has high roll, but the roll, it relies on a few things, and it doesn't do much to boost its damage outside of the roll. So I think a 5 is perfect. Well, moving on to the usefulness category. This E.G.O might not seem like it's all that much to begin with, but if you start realizing what the potential of the passive can do. Inflicting pink ribbons is actually very useful, because let's say you're soloing or you're really fast ID. You win the clash, and let's say they have like 5 slots, right? That's pretty average for a boss, 5 slots. Let's say they roll an average of 2 coins per every slot. So that's 5 slots, 2 coins. At the end of the turn, they'll have a whopping like 10 pink ribbons. That means they're going to have 10 bind next turn. That is a fairly potent amount, if you're asking me. Which is why I got to put it at like a 6.5, 6.7. Yeah, 6.7 seems about right. Because it could inflict just absurd amount of bind. An absurd amount of bind. Other than the bind infliction, though, it's not too crazy. I mean, it's got a nice roll. That's really about it, though. The bind and the roll is alright. Well, I see was E.G.O is underrated now, because it's not that useful unless you're considering the passive. Its roll is good unless you're in an actual scenario, and its corrosion is just kind of trash. So, would you use this E.G.O? I'm curious. I don't think you would, because her other 10th E.G.O, which we're covering tomorrow, right, daily E.G.O reviews, is just way better. It's just better in pretty much every way, and hell, it might even outroll it. But we gotta wait till tomorrow to see that. Well, have a good one.